Welcome into NBA Now. I'm Chase Sr., and here's the deal. The NBA trade deadline is coming up in a little more than 2 weeks, and it's about to get crazy across the association. So if you want to stay up to date with the latest trades, rumors, and signings across the NBA, subscribe to our main Chat Sports YouTube channel at youtube.com/chatsportstv. Let's kick it off with the Golden State Warriors, and they are expected to be active in the trade and buyout markets because they don't want to waste another prime year for Steph Curry. According to reports, the Warriors are interested in Victor Oladipo. Could Oladipo get traded for the second time this year? That would be his third team in a single season, which would be absolutely crazy. Reports indicate that the Rockets are expected to trade Oladipo after he turned down a 2-year extension back a couple weeks ago. And what would this do for the Golden State Warriors? Well, it would give them a playmaking upgrade over guys like Kelly Oubre Jr., as well as Andrew Wiggins. And when I look at the Warriors right now, this is what it comes down to for Golden State. Steph Curry is having an MVP caliber season. You can't afford to let a magical season go to waste. This guy won All-Star Weekend. If you look at the betting odds, he's right there in the thick of things for the MVP race, averaging less than 30 points per game, 5.5 rebounds. He's dishing out dimes at a nice rate at 6.3 assists per game. And check out the three-point percentage. Steph Curry making it rain from a 41.1% clip from beyond the arc. Now, when we look at this Warriors lineup, where could Oladipo fit in? Well, he'd probably be a starter if he did get traded to Golden State. You have Steph Curry, averaging a little less than 30 points per game. Andrew Wiggins has been better over the last couple of weeks. He's averaging 17. Kelly Oubre Jr., maybe he would be shipped out in exchange for Oladipo, so Oladipo might fit into that Oubre role. And then you have James Wiseman, who has been good in his rookie year, as well as Eric Paschall. And then, of course, you have to think about Draymond Green. Yes, his numbers are down, but he still adds a valuable force to this Warriors lineup. But Oladipo figures to kind of insert himself pretty well with that Warriors team if he is indeed traded to Golden State. Here are his numbers. 20 points per game, a little more than 5 rebounds. What I'm focusing on with Oladipo, yes, he's coming back from that major injury when he did injure his quad. His field goal percentage is down to 38.7%. So that's not great for Victor Oladipo, but you have to think that as he gets a little bit healthier, that those numbers are going to increase over time. This is my question that I have to pose to the audience out there, because here at Chat Sports, we love to interact with you all watching. Should the Warriors trade for Victor Oladipo? I want you to go into the comments section, type T for trade, and type P for pass. Go back to Oladipo's numbers. Hey, since coming out of Indiana, his game has progressively gotten better every single year. This year, as we mentioned, 20 points per game, a little more than 5 rebounds, 4.5 assists. And as he continues to get healthier off that severe injury that he suffered with the Indiana Pacers, I think if you put Oladipo on a team like the Warriors, he's going to be able to help Golden State kind of climb up the standings in the Western Conference. What do you think about Victor Oladipo as a player? Go into the comment section and grade Oladipo as a player. This is easy. All you have to do is scale it from 1 to 100. So St. Patrick's Day is coming up in about a week, and if you're going out, you're going to need some St. Patty's themed NBA gear. This is what you have to do. Head to chatsports.com/NBA green. All types of gear that you can rock on St. Patty's Day, but I got to tell you, looking at those colors, looking at the themes, looking at the logos and the design, you can rock that all year round and look fresh, whether it's St. Patty's Day or not. And again, it's not like this is just for the Boston Celtics because it's green. We got colors in Lakers colors, Warriors colors, as well as Celtics colors, shirts, hats, socks, jerseys, everything you need, free shipping on orders over $19. All right, so let's continue on with the Warriors. And as I mentioned, they're going to be very active in trades in the buyout market, trying to add to this roster to make a run in the Western Conference. And according to the San Francisco Chronicle, the Warriors would have to acquire a superstar to trade that T-Wolves top 3 protected pick for this upcoming season, as well as James Wiseman. And this has kind of been a topic of conversation for Warriors fans because they're thinking, look, Wiseman has been pretty solid this year. If we need to pick up a player? Do we have to trade James Wiseman as well as that valuable asset from the Minnesota Timberwolves that came back in that trade for D'Angelo Russell? This is what it comes down to for Golden State. They're not going to give Wiseman up as well as that T-Wolves pick unless they get a superstar player back. And according to reports, Golden State almost definitely would not trade those assets. And for them to do so, they would need to bring a player back like a Giannis or Embiid. So a player in that category in order to trade Wiseman or that coveted pick. So that goes to show you that the likelihood of that happening is very, very small. What do you think about that possible scenario? Is it worth it to give up those assets for maybe a Victor Oladipo player? I'd kind of put him in the middle tier of assets that you could try to acquire here as the trade deadline approaches. Type Y for yes and type N for no. Speaking of James Wiseman, some juicy info coming out from draft night from Jalen Rose. He said the night of the draft, the Golden State Warriors, picking number 2, told LaMelo Ball they were going to take him next, and they ended up not doing it. That story is going to come out soon. Well, Jalen Rose, here's some news for you. When you take to the podcast streets and you release information like that, it's going to spread like wildfire. So here are the numbers side to side, and we're going to pose a question to the audience because which player would you rather want? If you look at James Wiseman and LaMelo Ball, I don't think there's any question that LaMelo Ball is going to be the Rookie of the Year. He's having a miraculous year, and it took him a little while to get started after playing pro ball in Australia last year. Didn't get acclimated in the NBA right away, but check out the numbers. A little less than 16 points per game, dishing out more than 6 assists, 6 rebounds. He's been an all-around player. I think the three-point percentage is going to go up over time, but still from the field, shooting nearly a 45% clip. So which player would you rather have given what Jalen Rose had said? Is it James Wiseman? If so, type JW. Would you rather have LaMelo Ball? If so, type LB. You look at that Warriors roster, and you think about this. Obviously, a big man was much needed for Golden State because they've had some backup options and some starting secondary options move on in past years after they went on that dynasty run. LaMelo Ball and the Golden State Warriors, if the Warriors did in fact select him with the number 2 pick, would have been a scary, scary crew in Golden State for many years to come. Here at Chat Sports, we're talking NBA all day, every day, and we have a variety of channels across the Chat Sports umbrella. Lakers Report, we're almost at 33,000 subscribers. Warriors Today, we just went over 14,000 subscribers. Mavericks Today, we're closing in on 13,000 subscribers, and we have some work to do with the Boston Celtics. We just surpassed 4,000 subs. We want to get that number up. We want to get it on the uptick. So those are all of our NBA channels here at Chat Sports. If you haven't already done so and you're a big fan of some of these teams, you can subscribe to 1, 2, 3, 4, all of them if you want to, because we're pushing out content on the daily here at Chat Sports. Let's get into some latest news and rumors around the Boston Celtics now. According to reports, the Celtics interested in Nikolai Vucevic. That's something that we've covered ad nauseum here at Chat Sports. Also, reports indicate that the Celtics could possibly looking into the most improved player of the year candidate, Jeremy Grant, whose game has just gotten so great over the last couple of years. It's been a great developmental story. And the big thing to monitor with the Boston Celtics is this. It's that trade exception. It's worth $28.5 million. Basically, to break that all down for you and to simplify it, the Celtics can bring in a marquee player and absorb their salary because of that $28.5 million trade exception. Let's look at some more potential players in addition to Vucevic, in addition to Jeremy Grant, that the Celtics could possibly target with the trade deadline a little more than 2 weeks away. How about Harrison Barnes? Really intriguing player. It feels as though he's on that Perry Ellis flow, like he's been in the league for decades. He's only 28 years old. And according to Brian Scalabrine of NBC Sports Boston, Scalabrine, of course, was with the Celtics when they won that championship with Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. Scalabrine says the Celtics want Harrison Barnes. That's of note because he is plugged into that organization. He also thinks that Boston thinks that Harrison Barnes can come in there and really make a difference. Currently, Barnes is making $22+ million. He's still got a couple years left on his contract, so it's not like it would be a one and done for Boston. And looking at Harrison Barnes' numbers, this is why I like the potential of Harrison Barnes coming to the Celtics, because this is a guy who can really do it all, averaging a little less than 17 points per game, and he can just kind of fill up the stat sheet in a variety of ways. He can rebound the basketball. He's shooting nearly 50% from the floor. And as a guy who can spread the floor as well, Harrison Barnes is knocking down three-pointers at a 39% clip. So you put him next to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, if Kemba Walker maybe fixes that knee and he gets healthier and healthier, Harrison Barnes would be able to come into Boston and really be a premier player for the Boston Celtics as they try to make a run for a playoff spot. What's your interest level in Harrison Barnes? For me, it's close to a 10, but I want you to hop into the comments section and I want you to scale it from 1 to 10. I made my opinion known. For me, Harrison Barnes, his pedigree is really appealing. Only 28 years old, won a championship with the Golden State Warriors in 2015. Go on to Google, Basketball Reference, look at Harrison Barnes' numbers. I got to tell you, Harrison Barnes has been underrated. Now, coming out of North Carolina, a lot of people were expecting him to possibly be a 20-7 guy, a 25-7 guy. He hasn't necessarily been that, but think about his surroundings a little bit, right? He goes on to a loaded Golden State Warriors team. He was on some of the most successful teams in NBA history, and he was a valuable piece to those Warriors teams. And we look at the offensive numbers. Harrison Barnes can get it done on the offensive end of the floor. Also a really good defender too. And the valuable part and component about this potential trade is the fact that Harrison Barnes is going to be on this roster for a little bit. So let's move forward with another trade idea. This coming from The Athletic as we move on from Harrison Barnes. So The Athletic proposed this trade idea. The Celtics would receive Mason Plumlee, giving the Celtics bench options at the forward and center spot, and depth there as well. They'd also receive Wayne Ellington in exchange for Tristan Thompson, Javonte Green, and a 2022 first-round pick. Kind of an interesting trade, not something that's just going to make you very, very excited, right? But when you look at the needs for the Boston Celtics, it's front court depth and it's shooting. Mason Plumlee would be able to give the Celtics that. From a front court perspective, from a shooting perspective, Wayne Ellington has been getting it done from the beyond the arc for a long time throughout his NBA career, right? So he'd be able to give this team depth as well. So Mason Plumlee, Wayne Ellington, two options with this trade idea from The Athletic that if they were to come to the Boston Celtics, they would be able to give this team some bench help and some front court depth and some shooting help as this team tries to make a run at the playoffs. So let's pose a question for the audience here, for all the Celtics fans out there. Who would win this proposed trade? Type C for Celtics, type P for Pistons, and let us know which team wins this trade. For me, trade doesn't really move the needle. If I'm the Boston Celtics, the player I'm really centering in on is Nikolai Vucevic. If Nikolai Vucevic gets traded to the Boston Celtics, and it might take a haul, you might have to part with picks, some young players, maybe Marcus Smart, but if you are serious about making a run for a Larry O.B., bringing in a player like Nikolai Vucevic to fill the most glaring need on this roster, which is the forward spot, which is the center spot, depending on if you want to go big or small, it's Vucevic for me, for the Boston Celtics to target in a potential trade. That's the best option. Let's move on to Blake Griffin now. So last week, him and the Pistons agreed to a buyout, and Blake Griffin ended up signing with the Brooklyn Nets. That was my favorite destination for Blake Griffin. Multiple contenders were said to have interest in Blake Griffin because, yeah, he's not going to be the player that he once was in his prime, where he was averaging 20 and 10 and just, being a human highlight reel every single night. But Blake Griffin maybe still has a little gas left in the tank for a contender, no longer an elite athlete, and I think he has lost a step, but could be a valuable piece for a contender. That's why contenders were interested in him, and he decided to go to the Brooklyn Nets. Why did Blake Griffin not decide to go to a team like the Los Angeles Lakers, who were said to have interest, or possibly the Los Angeles Clippers for a possible reunion? Well, Here's what Blake Griffin had to say on Bleacher Report in an Ask Me Anything recently. He said, they, as in the Brooklyn Nets, they have a need for a four-man. I've always had a lot of respect for Steve Nash and all of the guys that they have. Sean Marks has done a great job there. It was a tough decision, and I wanted to be on a team that was contending. So you heard it there from Blake Griffin. That's why Blake Griffin has decided to go to the Brooklyn Nets and not the Los Angeles Lakers, which, hey, good for Blake Griffin. I don't think he's going to be a guy who's going to blow the doors off of everybody, but Blake Griffin, can he come off the bench and help the Brooklyn Nets a little bit? Possibly. Not going to be that 20-10 guy, as I mentioned, but Blake Griffin's still a valuable asset, and who knows, maybe he goes to Brooklyn and he becomes somewhat re-energized. Now, what do you think about Blake Griffin going to the Brooklyn Nets, and which team do you think Blake Griffin should have went to? Which team would you have liked to have seen signed Blake Griffin? All you got to do, hop in the comment section below and let us know which team you thought should have signed Blake Griffin. Let's get into some latest Dallas Mavericks news and rumors. And the Mavericks are a team that they're going to need to add a piece or two if they want to make a run in the Western Conference. And according to reports, this is somewhat interesting. Kevin Love is exactly the kind of player that the Mavericks need, according to reports out there. And the five-time All-Star has championship experience from when he helped LeBron James and Kyrie Irving bring Cleveland that NBA championship, coming back from that 3-1 deficit over the Golden State Warriors. And the potential fit for Kevin Love, yeah, he's up there in age, but he'd be able to play alongside Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. His numbers this year, it's important to note that Kevin Love has only played in 2 games, got injured early on in December, only averaged in those 2 games 9.5 points, 6 rebounds, and yeah, the field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, not great. But again, important to note that Kevin Love had only played 2 games, so those numbers are a little skewed. He's a little cold to start the season, but Kevin Love to the Mavericks, that's a possibility. How about another potential target, and it's on the same team as Kevin Love on the Cleveland Cavaliers? How about Larry Nance Jr.? This is an option that I would prefer over Kevin Love. Kevin Love might be able to spread the floor a little bit more, but I think Larry Nance would give the Mavericks a little bit more, especially athletically at this point in his career. According to reports, Dallas is one of 6 teams interested in Larry Nance, as the Cavaliers think about possibly selling with the NBA trade deadline a little more than 2 weeks away. Nance hasn't played since January 31st because of a finger injury. And I like Larry Nance's game because he's really developed it over the last couple of years. Remember, earlier on in his career, he only was a high flyer, a guy who could only dunk. But over time, he's added to his offensive package, and right now he's shooting a career-best 38.1% from three-point range, and that's an element to his game that he has worked on, and that's an element of his game that could really help the Dallas Mavericks spread the floor a little bit and give them an athletic preference. Yeah. So do you have a preference between Kevin Love, Larry Nance Jr.? If it's Kevin Love who you'd like to see the Dallas Mavericks trade for, type KL. If it's Larry Nance Jr., hop into the comments section and type LN.